Hello everyone, this is Rachel with Mic Drop Miniatures, and today I would like to show you how to make this utility cart that is for a garage. How adorable is that? So what we'll need to get started is your kit. This came in the August 25 Dollhouse miniature subscription box. You'll also need some wax paper. This is optional, but I like to keep my surface clean. Some super glue. Also some wood glue, and then a container for the super glue with a toothpick. I like to use a combination of both. And then something, I use Legos, something to keep your pieces square. And then also you might need some sandpaper also. All right, so let's get started. I'm just going to cover my surface with my wax paper. And I'm going to put just a little bit of super glue in. It dries so fast that will just keep filling as needed. So I use a combination of both super glue and wood glue because the interaction that the glue, it makes an instant bond, and then you don't have to wait for glue to dry. I mean, you still gotta wait, but not as long. And if you're impatient like me sometimes, you like that. So here are the handles. This right here is going to be the top. This is the bottom. All right, yes. Okay, this is the top. These are the legs. So these right here. And then these right here are the side pieces that will attach to the legs. And then, let's see, I think that's all the pieces. So first we're going to start with the legs. Just going to pop these out. They should pop out pretty easily. If you need to use an X-Acto knife to help with that, you can just punch it in the back. So this is where your sandpaper would come in. If you have any like little pieces that just need to be sanded, you can go ahead and do that now. And then we're going to go ahead and find the bottom. Okay, so I'm getting, nope, this one. All right, so pop out the bottom. And we are going to glue our pieces in there. So I use my fine tip glue. I put a little bit of the wood glue, and then with my toothpick I apply a little bit of the super glue. And again, this is more of like the chemical reaction of the two glues helps it to bond better. And I find that this really speeds up my process of my miniature making. So you kind of want to hold those in place. This is when I use a square, just to make sure that all your pieces are square, because you don't want a wobbly utility cart. And just hold it in place for a second and then move to the other one. Oops. This is where you need just a little bit of patience. Maybe you can listen to a podcast. I have a podcast all about Dollhouse miniatures if you ever want to check that out. Having something else to watch or do while you're waiting for the glue, I find helps tremendously. All right, so we're going to just work on the other two legs. Same process. A little bit of the wood glue, a little bit of the super glue, and let it dry. So I think these are pretty much dry. We're going to move on. And these little pieces right here are for the sides. And you can see them right here. So we're going to put them on the ends. And so I run a little strip of glue on one side. Again, you don't need much glue. And this is where the toothpick helps too, as you can then even it out. Oops, I guess that leg wasn't dry. And so you can even that out a little, put a little glue on the bottom, and then carefully put it on the side, attaching it to the leg. And you want to make sure that these are being square. So you don't want it to stick out past the leg. And let's re-glue this one. Again, you just gotta have patience, right? I'm gonna hold that place for a second. All right, and then we're gonna move on with the other sides. Oh, I guess that leg didn't like me either. All right. We are going to force it to stay up and give it a little more support with this leg. All right. Hold it in place. And then you're just going to move on with the other two. Same process. Again, making sure that it's square. You don't want them sticking out past. You want to make sure it's definitely an L shaped. And then I would wait a little bit for the glue to set before moving to the next step. But again, the next step is going to give us even more stability. All right, so I'm going to let that dry. And then while that dries, I guess we can put one of the wheels on. All right, I'm carefully moving that. All right, so we're going to grab our little wheels, pop those out. Again, if you need an X-Acto knife, you don't want to break them, you can flip the piece around and then just pop it out with a knife or something sharp. And this is when your sandpaper is going to come in handy because you want the wheels to move and be round. So I would definitely get any little pieces off with sandpaper. All right, when your wheels are all prepped and round, right now we're just going to prep two of them. I would take a little bit of glue and put it inside the wheel. And taking our axle, popping it in there, and then just slide it in on. And then let that dry. One thing I want to mention about the wheels, if you want this a different color, I would definitely try painting it first. Especially if the cart, if you can paint this before assemble it, I'm just going to assemble and then I'm going to spray paint. I'm all about the spray paint. And then the legs the wheels I'll actually spray paint a different color. All right, so now that I think this is dry, I'm going to pop out the bottom and all the sides. I'm going to prep it just like before, making sure I don't have to sand any pieces down. All right, so carefully I'm going to add, this is going to help stabilize it. Add some glue here to these little side pieces. And then I'm also going to add it to the legs where I know that this shelf will sit. And add a little bit of the super glue as well. I'm just using, as you saw, Gorilla super glue. I don't really have a favorite. And then I'm going to carefully place these on top of those side pieces, making sure that it's square. Hold it in place just for a little bit until it sets, and then you're going to let that completely dry. Voila, we are almost done. I think I'm going to add a little more glue in between here. I didn't really get a whole lot of glue in there. Same with this one. I'm adding a little bit of glue between this bottom shelf and the leg. The glue I'm using is Well Bond glue. That's probably my favorite go-to glue for mini making. Not to mention my little bottle there. And my Legos. They make perfect squares. All right, I think my piece is square, so I'm going to let that dry. And then we'll move on to the sides. All right, I think my piece is dry. And we can go ahead and do the wheels. Again, I'm going to take these, I'm not going to glue it because I'm going to paint these and then a different color. I think my cart will be red and my wheels will be black. But you're just going to slide it on, just like so. I would add a little bit of glue just like you did the first wheel. And then same for the other one. Slide it through and pop on your wheel. So yes, I will have a podcast all about why I decided to make a garage themed Dollhouse miniature subscription box. So you definitely want to check it out. I'll leave the link here. All right, so now we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to go ahead and do the sides. All right, coming back, I'm pretty sure it's dry enough. I always like to rush things, but I think it's dry enough. All right, so we're going to add first, these are for the top, and then we also have some sides for the bottom. All right, actually, so that's the side. Actually, we're going to start on the side. We're going to do the little pieces. So I'm going to run a string of glue along the bottom. And these side pieces will line up flush to the side, to the legs. And I'll show you what I mean here. Oops. Okay, that one wasn't dry. Just pop it back in place here. It's pretty tacky, so. All right, so putting on, see how it's going to be square with the sides, and it's going to be square with the bottom because you want kind of a lip on your shelf. So square there, square on the sides, and then just hold it in place for a minute. And now we're going to repeat that process for the top. These ones are a little wider. This is the top shelf, and it's a little wider because it has to be as wide as the handles, and I'll show you that here. Just get some more super glue. The only bad thing with super glue is it dries really fast. All right. So here we go. See how these, you want some lips. This one's a little shorter than this one, and you want them flush on the bottom and up on the top. So again, we're going to make sure that they're even with the bottom, so the bottom of the shelf, and then the sides, right? Yep, see the width? So it's bigger. And that's because the handles are wider. All right, when you think that that's set enough, flip it over. And you're going to repeat the process. A thin piece of glue, a little bit of my super glue, the smaller one on the bottom, and then the wider one on the top. All right. Now you're going to repeat that same process for the sides. I'm just going to hold it down, making sure that it's set enough before I flip it. And same process. We're just going to add some glue where the sides go. I guess I should add it along there too. The nice thing about painting before you assemble is sometimes if you get any glue on the outside, you can definitely see it when you paint. But I don't know, I'm just all about ease sometimes, and that's why I just spray paint the whole piece. But if you're really you don't like those glue marks, then you definitely want to paint and then assemble. So here's the handles. So you want to make sure there's this little notch. Doesn't really matter if it goes up or down. I personally like it down. You just want to make sure that they're the same on both sides. And then same process, you got it. I'll say it one more time. Thin piece of glue, some super glue, making sure that all the area has some glue. Pressing it into place, making sure that it's square now with the sides and the bottom of the shelf, so all the sides will be even. And then hold it in place until it's tacky. Usually about 10 seconds will do the trick. All right, and then, oops, see, that was not tacky enough. I'm rushing it. There's no rushing minis when you make them, right? All right, that should be good. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to repeat that same process. And we are about 98% complete with our little cart. Well, I still have to paint mine, but I'm curious what color you will be painting yours. The podcast, I'll just tell you that I'm going to talk about why I made the garage is for my dad. And he had one in his garage, and it was red. Really dirty red, though. I mean, could barely tell it was red because he used it all the time. So maybe I'll have to grunge mine up a little. It's one thing I'm trying to learn. I'm making a Dollhouse miniature haunted house. And yeah, it's a new art form that I'm trying to make all my minis dirty. If you have any tips, I'd love to hear them. So I'm thinking this cart, in honor of my dad, is going to have to be dirty and greasy and paint dripped on it. He's like me. He was messy. Messy creator. All right, and then the last thing you want to do is add on your handle. Just like the wheels, you're going to add just a little bit of the glue there and there, and glue on your handle. Me, I'm going to paint mine probably black to match the wheels. But there you go. That is the cart. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you fill it with all your favorite treasures. And make sure to check me out at micdropminiatures.com. And please connect. I'd love to hear from you. All right. Thanks for watching.